Hey everybody, in this video we're going to talk about image to image. Image to image is one of the more fundamental elements of image transformation using Invoke. It powers a lot of what goes on in the unified canvas and is one of the main avenues for getting color control in your generations. Today, we'll talk a little bit about how image to image works, go over how to utilize it in the image to image tab, and lay the foundation for more advanced use cases of image to image in later videos. One of the key elements of the AI image generation process is called the denoising process. When you generate an image in Invoke, you actually watch that process unfold. You see the noise slowly turn into an image. And noise is really just a term to describe this kind of chaotic, fuzzy stuff that's on the screen. With image to image, what we're actually doing is changing that initial set of content that the AI is looking at in order to generate our image, rather than having to come up with everything from scratch, like on the right with complete noise. The system is actually mixing in your initial image into that noise. One of the terms that we'll cover in this video, the denoising strength, shows how much closer to our original image or complete noise the process should use. When you utilize a low denoising strength, you're providing more guidance on what the final image should look like, both from a color perspective and a composition perspective. And so there's less freedom for the AI to change those details. This can be really useful if you're trying to make small tweaks or enhance some of the texture and details on an existing image. When we increase the strength into kind of the medium range of denoising strength, you can see that there are more suggestions of shapes and colors. But the text prompt that we provide is ultimately going to transform the image pretty dramatically based on what we're instructing the model to invoke. Don't worry, we'll go through a couple of examples to show how this works in practice. But it's really good to get this mental model of how the image to image process works, because again, this is a very powerful tool that is utilized in multiple places in Invoke's underlying workflow. So just to reemphasize, when we have a low denoising strength, such as on the left, we are giving less flexibility for the AI to generate content. We're controlling much more of the color and composition in the image. And this is typically used when you want to add small details and make minor tweaks to an existing image. When we increase the denoising strength into one of the more moderate levels, we're shaping some of the noise that is being used in the generation process by providing color and compositional control, but ultimately are giving the AI a lot of freedom to interpret what it's seeing based on our text prompt. And if we take that denoising strength all the way up to 1, we are instructing the system to pretty much ignore the initial image and effectively go through the same generation process that it does with text to image. Let's dive back into the tool to see it in action. So I took one of the bonsai trees that I had created from an earlier video, and I passed it through the image to image process to create this illustrated version of the bonsai tree. You can see that there's a lot of the same shape and structure, but a number of additional details have been added in based on the prompt, and ultimately it feels like a different image. Let's explore what happens when we try to reverse this process. So I'm going to grab our initial prompt from this image. This is a pretty basic photography prompt and ultimately gave us a lot of the look that we were going for in this initial image. And what I'm going to do is take our kind of illustrated version of that tree and navigate to the image to image tab. The image to image tab has two sides of your workspace. You have your initial image on the left-hand side. This is effectively what you're using as that foundational image that is going to guide the generation process. And then we have our currently selected image or our preview in the workspace. I'm going to take this illustrated image and drag it over to set it as my initial image. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the prompt that gave us our original photographic version of that tree. In order to view the denoising strength, we'll open up our advanced options. On the image to image tab and the unified canvas, our denoising strength is listed in this advanced options settings. And by default, it'll be set to 0.5. 0.7. 0.7 is a healthy denoising strength for transforming an image. It guides some of the generation process, but ultimately generates a lot of new details. So we'll leave it at the default just to explore what happens when we use this photographic prompt in our illustrated tree to see how it transforms. And then we'll test a couple of generations at higher and lower strengths. So we can see that when we took our denoising strength and used the same prompt that we used previously, it took us back a pretty significant way to that original composition that we had generated before. There's a table, it's inside, it looks like there's maybe some diffused light coming from a window. But what happens if we decrease this denoising strength to 0.55? So again, by decreasing the strength, we're pushing it more towards this initial image. Let's go ahead and generate that. By shifting more towards our initial image, we've kept a lot of the dark lighting on the outer rim of this image. It's given it sort of a vignette look. And we have this light source from behind the tree captured in our new generation. If we take this down even further, we might find that we're able to more closely resemble our illustrated composition while adding some more realistic details. Pretty cool. Now, I will say going lower than about 0.3 on the denoising strength will typically not give you a whole lot of useful generation, but you're welcome to play with it, test it out, and see what works for your process. Now, I'm going to go ahead and upload a new asset to our initial image. You'll notice that this is a black and white shape, and you can imagine what would happen if we tried to do denoising on this. There probably wouldn't be a lot that changes. What you'll find is that when you're using very high contrast images like black and white at high denoising strengths, you're able to control composition of the output and placement of certain details. So in this case, let's turn this up all the way to 0.9. With black and white images like this, you're going to need it to be pretty high because it's going to have to overcome a lot of the uniform color in your image. Because of the high contrast of the white and the black, this technique allows you to provide a really strong control over the area of the image that will generate content. In this case, we've got our bonsai tree within that middle circle. You can use this to great effect for certain workflows like creating concept art, stickers, icons, and more, where you typically want to have a background that you can remove that asset from. Taking this into something like Photoshop or Affinity becomes an easy process to integrate into downstream workflows. You can also use image to image with things like control adapters to provide even more compositional control while using the initial image for color. There's a whole host of creative ways that you can use the tool to generate new content. We're looking forward to seeing what you do with image to image. That's all for this video. See you soon.